Welcome to Monk's Temple. Let's begin. Take a breath. Just one. A long, slow inhale, and an even slower exhale. Feel the weight of your body. Feel the air on your skin. For the next little while, we aren't going anywhere. We are just going to be here together, exploring a map of the mind that has been guiding people home for over 2,500 years. We often come to a place like this because something feels off. Not always a crisis. Sometimes just a low-grade fever of the soul. A feeling of being vaguely dissatisfied. Wanting more. Feeling less than. We scroll through our phones looking for answers. We listen to podcasts looking for hacks. We chase goals looking for a feeling of completion that always seems just over the next hill. It is exhausting. Like trying to drink from a mirage. The closer you get, the further it recedes. This ancient map, the one the Buddha pointed to, does not start with a new goal. It starts with a radical diagnosis. It starts with the truth of your experience right now. The foundation of that truth is built on 5 unshakable characteristics. Think of them not as beliefs to adopt, but as tools to use. A way to test any path, any thought, any promise of happiness. A way to discern the real from the counterfeit in your own life. Before we go further, notice something. Notice your own mind right now. Is it fully here, listening? Or is it partially somewhere else, making a grocery list, rehearsing a conversation, worrying about tomorrow? This is the habit we all share. The mind is rarely where the body is. The body is always in the present moment, but the mind is a time traveler, constantly visiting the past and future. This is the root of so much suffering. The Buddha noticed this 25 centuries ago. He saw that human beings have a peculiar ability to be miserable about things that haven't happened yet and haunted by things that happened long ago. He also saw this was not permanent. It was a habit. And habits can be changed. The first characteristic is that any genuine teaching must be practical in the present moment. It helps you find peace and clarity right now, not at some future date. It does not ask you to endure suffering today for the promise of happiness tomorrow. It does not say, be miserable now so you can enjoy retirement later. It says, look at your experience right now. What is the nature of your suffering in this exact moment? Can you be with it without adding more suffering on top? We live in a culture obsessed with the future. Always becoming, never arriving. We tell stories about how happy we will be when we get the promotion, find the partner, lose the weight. These stories keep us going, but they also keep us trapped. The happiness we seek is always just out of reach. Always in the next moment. I once knew a man named Richard. A brilliant architect. He designed breathtaking buildings. Won awards. But Richard was not happy. He lived with constant low-grade anxiety. He would finish one building, feel brief satisfaction, and then immediately anxiety would return as he focused on the next one. Richard came to see me because his doctor said his blood pressure was dangerously high. Only 45, but his body showed the wear of a lifetime of striving. I asked him a simple question. When was the last time you were completely at peace? He thought a long time. Finally he said, I don't know. Maybe never. I asked him to describe his typical day. He woke up thinking about his to-do list. He drove to work thinking about meetings. He spent his day planning and strategizing. He came home thinking about the next day. His mind was never where his body was. His body was at dinner with family, but his mind was on the next project. His body was in bed trying to sleep, but his mind raced through unfinished tasks. Richard was living his entire life in the future, sacrificing every present moment for the promise of a future moment that never arrived as lasting peace. Finish one project, there was always another. The future was a treadmill that kept speeding up every time he thought he was about to reach the end. I suggested a simple experiment. For 1 week, he would bring his mind back to the present whenever he noticed it wandering into the future. When driving, feel the steering wheel. When eating, taste the food. When with family, really look at their faces. Richard looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. He said, "That sounds like giving up on my goals." I explained that being present doesn't mean you stop planning. It means you stop living there. You can have goals without sacrificing your peace. The problem isn't having goals. The problem is believing your happiness depends on achieving them. If you're finding value in this exploration, please take a moment to subscribe to Monk's Temple. It helps others find these ancient teachings and ensures you won't miss the rest of our journey. Just click the button below. Thank you. Richard tried the experiment. The first few days were frustrating. His mind kept running to the future like a wild horse. Every few seconds he would notice he was somewhere else and gently bring himself back. It felt like a constant battle. But after about 4 days, something shifted. The moments of presence lasted longer. He noticed that when fully present, even for seconds, there was a quality of peace he had never experienced. Not excitement. Not euphoria. Just a quiet sense of okayness. Everything was fine, right now. The future hadn't arrived. The past was gone. And in this moment, there was nothing wrong. Richard started to understand something profound. The peace he had been seeking in future achievements had been available all along. He just hadn't been home to receive it. Too busy chasing tomorrow to notice today. This is what the Buddha meant when he said the path is the goal. Each moment of mindful presence is itself a moment of freedom. You don't have to wait. You don't have to earn it. You just have to show up. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a woman named Patricia. Patricia was a nurse. She worked in a busy hospital, taking care of patients who were often in great pain. Patricia loved her work, but it exhausted her. She would come home at the end of a shift and collapse on the couch, unable to do anything but stare at the television. She felt drained, empty, used up. Patricia heard about a meditation class at a local community center and decided to try it. She thought it might help her relax. The teacher talked about being present. About not living in the future or the past. Patricia listened politely, but inside she was skeptical. How can I be present when I'm dealing with screaming patients and dying people and frantic families? How can I be present when my job is constant chaos? The teacher gave Patricia a simple instruction. For 1 minute each day, stop whatever you are doing and just feel your breath. Just 1 minute. That was all. Patricia agreed to try. The first few days, she would forget. She would get home and realize she hadn't done her minute. But gradually, she started remembering. She would be walking down a hospital corridor and remember, oh, my minute. She would stop, just for a few seconds, and feel the air moving in and out of her body. After a few weeks, something unexpected happened. Patricia was in the middle of a chaotic situation. A patient was crashing. Alarms were going off. People were running. And in the middle of all that chaos, Patricia had a moment of complete stillness inside. The chaos continued around her, but inside, there was a quiet center. She continued doing her job, moving quickly, responding to the emergency, but there was a part of her that was completely unmoved, completely at peace. Patricia later described it as finding an island in the middle of a storm. The storm was still there. The waves were still crashing. But she was standing on solid ground. She wasn't being swept away. This is the gift of the first characteristic. It's not about making the storm go away. It's about finding the ground that is always there, underneath the chaos of your life. This brings us to the second characteristic. A genuine teaching must be something you can come and see for yourself. Not blind belief. Not accepting something because an authority figure said it or because it's written in an ancient book. Direct personal experience. The Buddha famously told a group of people confused by conflicting teachings, don't just believe something because it's been passed down or because your teacher said it. When you yourselves know that something leads to harm and suffering, abandon it. When you yourselves know that something leads to welfare and happiness, practice it. This is a radical invitation. Be your own authority. Not arrogantly, not dismissing the wisdom of others, but honoring your own direct experience as the ultimate test of truth. The Buddha wasn't asking for followers. He was asking for investigators. Here's a map. Go explore the territory yourself. Don't just believe me when I say there's a river over that hill. Go see it with your own eyes. Drink from it with your own mouth. This is completely different from how most of us operate. Most of us are raised to trust external authorities. Parents tell us what's true. Teachers tell us what's true. Culture tells us what's true. We absorb beliefs without examining them. We inherit opinions without testing them. We live our lives based on second-hand information, never knowing for ourselves what is actually real. I remember a man named Thomas who came to a meditation retreat. Thomas was a physicist. He dealt in facts, in data, in things that could be measured and proven. He was deeply skeptical of anything spiritual. He came because his wife asked him to, and he loved his wife. He sat in the back with his arms crossed, a look of polite skepticism on his face. The teacher talked about impermanence. How everything is constantly changing. Our bodies change. Our thoughts change. Our feelings change. Nothing stays the same from one moment to the next. Thomas had heard this before. He thought it was a nice poetic idea, but not particularly profound. Of course things change, he thought. That's just basic physics. But then the teacher gave an instruction. Sit quietly and simply observe your own breath. Notice the sensation of air entering and leaving the body. Thomas did this. After a few minutes, he started noticing something. His attention kept wandering. One moment focused on breath, the next moment thinking about work, the next planning what to have for lunch. He noticed these thoughts weren't solid. They arose, lingered for a moment, and then disappeared, replaced by something else. Thomas became fascinated. He had spent his entire career studying the external world. particles and forces and laws of physics. He had never studied his own mind. Now, for the first time, he was looking inward, observing the constant flux of his own consciousness. And he saw, with his own eyes, that everything in his mind was impermanent. Thoughts came and went. Feelings came and went. Sensations came and went. Nothing solid. Nothing permanent. Nothing that stayed the same. On the third day, Thomas had a powerful experience. He was sitting in meditation, and a strong feeling of anger arose. He remembered an old injustice from years ago at work. Normally, this memory would trigger a cascade of resentment. He would rehearse the story, add details, stoke the fire. But this time, he just watched. He watched the anger arise like a wave. He felt it in his body, tightness in his chest, heat in his face. And then, because he wasn't feeding it with his thoughts, he watched it pass away. The wave rose, and the wave fell. Underneath the wave, the ocean was still there, calm and vast. Thomas opened his eyes and looked around. Everything looked the same, but he felt completely different. He had seen something for himself. Proven a truth in the laboratory of his own mind. It wasn't a belief anymore. It was direct experience. And that direct experience changed him in a way no amount of intellectual understanding ever could. This is what it means to come and see. Taking the teachings off the page and into your life. Testing them. Experimenting with them. Seeing if they hold up under the pressure of your own experience. The Buddha didn't want followers who believed things because he said so. He wanted explorers who would discover the truth for themselves and make it their own. Now I want to tell you another story. This one is about a woman named Grace. Grace was a schoolteacher. She was kind, patient, and dedicated to her students. But Grace had a secret. She was deeply insecure. She constantly doubted herself. She worried about what others thought of her. She sought validation from everyone around her, from her principal, from her colleagues, from her students, even from her students' parents. Grace heard about a teaching on loving kindness. A practice of sending wishes of well-being to yourself and others. She was drawn to it immediately. She wanted to feel better about herself. She wanted to stop being so hard on herself. So she started practicing. Every day, she would sit quietly and repeat phrases in her mind. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. At first, it felt awkward. Fake. She didn't really believe she deserved to be happy. Didn't really believe she could be peaceful. But she kept practicing. Gradually, something shifted. She started to feel a genuine warmth toward herself. Started to accept herself, flaws and all. Started to treat herself with the same kindness she showed her students. Then something unexpected happened. Grace noticed her practice was affecting her relationships. She was less needy. Less desperate for approval. She could listen to criticism without falling apart. Could disagree with someone without needing them to agree with her. The kindness she cultivated toward herself was naturally flowing outward toward others. One day, a difficult parent came to see Grace. This parent was angry about something that happened in the classroom. In the past, Grace would have crumbled. Apologized excessively. Tried to make the parent like her. But this time was different. She listened. Really listened to what the parent was saying. Didn't defend herself. Didn't try to fix it. Just listened with an open heart. When the parent finished, Grace said, "I hear how upset you are. I understand why you feel that way. Let's work together to find a solution." The parent's anger dissolved. They talked calmly. Found a resolution. Afterward, the parent apologized for being so angry. Grace said, "It's okay. I understand." And she meant it. Wasn't just saying the right words. She genuinely felt understanding. The practice of loving kindness had opened her heart in a way she never thought possible. This is the power of a teaching you can come and see for yourself. Grace didn't just believe loving kindness would make her happier. She practiced it, and she saw the results in her own life. Saw she was suffering less. Saw her relationships improving. Saw she was becoming kinder, more peaceful. The proof was in her own experience. This brings us to the third characteristic. A genuine teaching must be timeless. Unchanging over time. Unlike human truths that may be valid for a few hundred years before being replaced by new discoveries. Unlike truths that apply to one group but not another. The Buddha's Dharma is not limited by time. In any era, these teachings remain applicable. Providing practical values for humanity. Peace. Happiness. Freedom from suffering. Some might argue that ancient teachings don't fit the modern world. That we've evolved beyond such things. This misses the point entirely. The Buddha himself affirmed that his Dharma possesses a timeless nature. No matter how much living conditions change. No matter how much wealth increases. No matter how technology advances. Humans cannot end suffering if they still cling to greed, hatred, and delusion. Think about it. This is true now. It will remain true thousands of years from now. No matter how much evolution occurs. Humans will still suffer if they cling to greed, hatred, and delusion. To end suffering, we must abandon the mindset of mastering external things or reacting to external circumstances. Instead, by observing our own sensations, we can truly end distress. I think of a man named Frank. Frank was a technology executive. He worked in Silicon Valley. He was surrounded by the latest innovations, the brightest minds, the most advanced tools on the planet. Frank believed technology would solve everything. He believed every problem had a technical solution, including his own unhappiness. Frank tried everything. Biohacking, productivity apps, wearable devices that tracked his sleep, his heart rate, his stress levels. He optimized his diet. He optimized his exercise. He optimized his work habits. And still, he was unhappy. Still anxious. Still restless. Still feeling like something was missing. A friend suggested meditation. Frank was skeptical. How could something so simple, so ancient, compete with all his advanced technology? But he was desperate, so he tried it. He sat quietly and watched his breath. That was it. No device. No app. No data to analyze. Just sitting. At first, his mind rebelled. This is boring. This is useless. This is a waste of time. But he kept sitting. Day after day. And gradually, something shifted. He started to notice patterns in his mind. The constant striving. The endless wanting. The subtle dissatisfaction that drove him to always seek the next thing, the better thing, the new thing. Frank realized something profound. His technology hadn't failed him. It had done exactly what it was designed to do. But it was designed to solve external problems. To make things faster, easier, more efficient. It wasn't designed to address the internal problem. The problem of the restless mind itself. The truth Frank discovered was timeless. The Buddha had described it 25 centuries ago. Suffering arises from craving. From the mind's habit of reaching for more, for different, for better. No amount of external optimization can fix an internal problem. The only solution is internal. Training the mind to see clearly. Training the mind to rest in present awareness. Training the mind to let go. Frank's story illustrates the timeless nature of the Dharma. The objects of craving change. In the Buddha's time, people craved better crops or a king's favor. In Frank's time, people craved the next innovation, the next optimization, the next upgrade. The objects are different. The mechanism is identical. The mind reaches out, grasps, and suffers. This truth is timeless. Consider jealousy. 1,000 years ago, a person felt jealousy because their neighbor had a better ox. Today, a person feels jealousy because their friend posts vacation photos on social media. The ox is gone. The jealousy remains. Same fire. Same heat. Same contraction of the heart. The teaching that helps you understand jealousy, see it as a conditioned mental state, watch it arise and pass, is as valuable today as ever. The packaging changes. The core software does not. That is the timeless nature. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a woman named Helen. Helen was a successful lawyer. She had worked her way up from nothing, built a career through sheer determination. She was proud of what she had accomplished. But Helen carried something heavy inside her. Resentment. Years of it. Resentment toward people who had doubted her. Toward colleagues who had underestimated her. Toward a system that had made everything harder because of where she came from. Helen's resentment was like a rock she carried everywhere. It was familiar. Comfortable, even. It fueled her. Pushed her to work harder, prove more, achieve greater things. But it also exhausted her. Kept her awake at night. Made her quick to anger, slow to trust. Helen heard about a teaching on forgiveness. Not the kind of forgiveness that says what happened was okay. Not the kind that pretends the past didn't hurt. But a different kind. A forgiveness that was really about letting go of the rock she had been carrying for so long. She was skeptical. She thought forgiveness meant letting people off the hook. Meant betraying herself. Meant pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. But she was also tired. So tired of carrying that weight. She started practicing. Sitting quietly and bringing to mind the people she resented. Not to excuse what they did. Just to acknowledge the feeling. To feel the resentment in her body. To see it as a sensation, not a story. And then, gently, to wish them well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. It felt impossible at first. Her mind screamed objections. They don't deserve this. You're being weak. This won't change anything. But she kept practicing. And slowly, something shifted. The resentment didn't disappear overnight. But it loosened its grip. She could think about these people without the same visceral reaction. Without the same tightness in her chest. One day, Helen realized she hadn't thought about any of them for weeks. The rock was gone. She hadn't dropped it all at once. She had just stopped picking it up every day. And eventually, it dissolved. This brings us to the fourth characteristic. Noble direction. This is crucial because it addresses how and why we make progress. The path is not a descent into numbness. Not becoming passive or indifferent. On the contrary, it is profound development. Moving in a direction that is truly noble and elevating. What does noble direction mean? It means the happiness you find does not come at anyone's expense. Not at the expense of others. Not at the expense of the environment. Not at the expense of your own future well-being. It is not a happiness that depends on exploiting anything or anyone. The worldly model of progress is often extractive. We extract resources from the earth to build wealth. Extract labor from others to build comfort. Extract validation from others to build self-esteem. This kind of progress is unstable. Depends on conditions outside ourselves. A happiness that is always vulnerable. Always needing to be defended and replenished. The noble direction of the Dharma is entirely internal. Progress from ignorance to wisdom. From reactivity to responsiveness. From contraction to expansion. Like cleaning a window. You are not adding anything. Just removing the dirt so natural light can shine through. The happiness that arises is not a new acquisition. It is uncovering a piece that was always there. Hidden beneath layers of craving and aversion. This type of progress is inherently safe. Harms no one. In fact, as you become more peaceful, more understanding, more compassionate, the world around you benefits. Your presence becomes a source of calm. Your actions become more thoughtful. Less likely to cause harm. A positive feedback loop. I think of a man named Derek. Derek was an entrepreneur. Built a successful company from scratch. He was competitive. Driven. Measured his worth by his net worth. He believed in the model of progress he had been taught. Work harder than everyone else. Crush the competition. Take what you deserve. Derek achieved everything he set out to achieve. And found himself empty. The money didn't satisfy. The status didn't satisfy. The victories felt hollow. He started questioning everything. What was all this for? Why did he feel so empty despite having so much? He started reading about different approaches to happiness. Came across the concept of noble direction. At first, it sounded naive. Soft. Unrealistic. But something about it resonated. The idea that progress could mean becoming a better person, not just a richer one. That happiness could come from within, not from acquiring more. Derek started experimenting. He volunteered at a homeless shelter. Not for publicity. Just to do it. He started mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing what he learned without expecting anything in return. He started practicing gratitude. Noticing what he already had instead of always wanting more. Nothing dramatic happened at first. But gradually, he noticed a shift. The emptiness started filling. Not with excitement or euphoria. With something quieter. Something deeper. A sense of purpose. A sense of connection. A sense that his life mattered in ways that had nothing to do with his bank account. Derek's progress was noble. It elevated him and elevated everyone around him. Sustainable. Safe. Harming no one. This is the fourth characteristic. A genuine teaching leads in a direction that uplifts without exploiting. Develops without depleting. Grows without taking. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a woman named Ivy. Ivy was a corporate trainer. She traveled constantly, flying from city to city, teaching workshops on leadership and communication. She was good at her job. Really good. People paid attention when she spoke. They remembered her messages. They recommended her to others. But Ivy had a problem. She was exhausted. Constantly exhausted. The travel drained her. The performance drained her. The need to always be on drained her. She would finish a workshop, go back to her hotel room, and collapse. Order room service. Stare at the television. Fall asleep. Wake up and do it all over again. Ivy thought about quitting. But she didn't know what else to do. This was her career. Her identity. Her source of income and meaning. So she kept going. Kept pushing. Kept pretending everything was fine. Then something happened. Ivy got sick. Really sick. Nothing life-threatening, but serious enough that she couldn't work for several months. Forced to stop. Forced to stay home. Forced to do nothing. At first, she hated it. Felt useless. Felt like she was falling behind. Watched her colleagues take over her clients, her projects. Felt the panic rise. But as the weeks passed, something shifted. She started to notice things she had never noticed before. The way morning light filled her kitchen. The sound of birds outside her window. The simple pleasure of drinking coffee without rushing. Ivy started reading. Books she never had time for. Philosophy. Psychology. Spirituality. She came across teachings about rest. About the value of simply being. About the difference between doing and being. She realized something shocking. She had spent her entire adult life doing. Achieving. Performing. She had almost no experience of just being. When she recovered, she didn't go back to her old life. She couldn't. Something had changed. She started a small practice, consulting from home. Less money. Less prestige. But something else appeared. Peace. Contentment. A sense of enoughness she had never felt before. This brings us to something important. The path is not about adding more. It's about uncovering what's already there. Like an artist carving a statue from marble. The statue is already in the stone. The artist just removes everything that isn't the statue. The piece is already in you. The practice just removes everything that isn't peace. Now we come to the fifth characteristic. For the wise to realize by themselves. This is not meant to be elitist. Not saying you need a high IQ or a PhD. The wise here refers to a particular quality of mind. A mind that is open. Willing to question its own assumptions. Humble enough to know it doesn't know everything. The mind of a true seeker. This characteristic highlights that the Dharma is not a doctrine that can be forced on anyone. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The Buddha can point to the moon, but you have to look. The truth is here. Available. Practical. Timeless. Noble. But the final step, the realization, is an inside job. No one can do it for you. No one can hand you enlightenment like a wrapped gift. This is why the path is often described as going against the stream. The stream of worldly thinking is powerful. It tells us happiness is out there. In things. In approval. It tells us we are a solid, permanent self that needs protection and promotion. The Dharma gently suggests the opposite. Happiness is within. The sense of solid self is a useful illusion. A collection of constantly changing processes. A difficult teaching to hear. Let alone realize. The mind, conditioned by eons of habit, pushes back. Only a wise mind, a mind at least a little free from its own conditioning, can seriously consider this possibility. This wisdom is not accumulated knowledge. It is inner clarity. Willingness to see things as they are, even if uncomfortable. The wisdom that asks, what if I'm wrong about what I think will make me happy? The wisdom that pauses before reacting. The wisdom that holds painful emotion without immediately trying to get rid of it. We all have this potential for wisdom. Not something to acquire from outside. Something to uncover. Like the sun behind clouds. The clouds are conditioning. Beliefs. Habits. The wisdom is the sun. Always shining. The practice is allowing clouds to disperse. So the sun's light can be seen clearly. I remember a story about a learned professor visiting a simple monk. The professor was full of knowledge. Could quote entire texts. Deconstruct any philosophy. He sat with the monk and began to talk. Show off his intellect. The monk listened patiently. Then offered the professor tea. Poured until the cup was full. Kept pouring. Tea spilled over the cup. Onto the saucer. Onto the table. The professor cried out, "Stop. The cup is full. No more will go in." The monk smiled and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions. How can I show you truth until you first empty your cup?" The wisdom required is the wisdom of an empty cup. Willingness to set aside what you think you know. Hold beliefs lightly. Be a beginner. Not unintelligent. Intelligent enough to know the limits of your intelligence. The wisdom of Socrates. I know that I know nothing. From that place of not knowing, true understanding can bloom. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a man named James. James was a firefighter. He ran into buildings when everyone else was running out. He had seen things most people cannot imagine. Burning bodies. Crushed children. The aftermath of horror. James was good at his job. Brave. Competent. Respected. But James carried something inside him. The things he had seen did not stay at work. They came home with him. Showed up in his dreams. Flashed across his mind at unexpected moments. He couldn't talk about it. Couldn't explain to his wife why he sometimes sat in the dark for hours. Couldn't tell his friends why he flinched at loud noises. James started drinking. Not heavily at first. Just enough to take the edge off. To quiet the images. To help him sleep. But over time, it became more. Became necessary. Became a problem. His wife noticed. His captain noticed. James noticed too, but he didn't know what else to do. Someone suggested he try meditation. James laughed at first. Meditation? A bunch of people sitting around humming? That's not for me, he said. But eventually, he got desperate enough to try. He went to a class. Sat on a cushion. Tried to watch his breath. His mind was chaos. Images of fires. Sounds of screams. Fear. Anger. Grief. All crashing together. He wanted to run. Wanted to drink. Wanted to do anything but sit there with all of it. The teacher noticed his struggle. Said something James never forgot. You don't have to fight these thoughts. You don't have to fix them. Just let them be. Like clouds passing through the sky. You are the sky, not the clouds. James kept coming back. Kept sitting. Kept watching the clouds. And slowly, over months, something shifted. The clouds were still there. But he wasn't caught in them anymore. He could watch a memory arise, feel the fear, and watch it pass. Could feel the urge to drink, and just let it be there without acting on it. After about a year, James had a dream. In the dream, he was back in a burning building. But this time, he wasn't afraid. He was calm. Focused. He did his job and walked out. When he woke up, he realized something. The dreams weren't gone. But they had changed. They weren't nightmares anymore. They were just dreams. This is what it means to realize something for yourself. James didn't just believe the teacher's words about being the sky. He experienced it. Proved it in the laboratory of his own mind. The truth became his own. Now let's return to the 5 characteristics and see how they work together. Like a compass, they guide us. Help us navigate the confusion of competing teachings and our own wandering minds. The first characteristic, practical in the present, asks us to stop deferring happiness. To find peace now, not later. James couldn't wait until the memories stopped to find peace. He had to find peace with the memories present. Right there in the chaos. The second characteristic, to come and see, asks us to trust our own experience. James didn't just believe meditation would help. He practiced. He saw results. Small at first. Then larger. The proof was in his own life. The third characteristic, timeless, assures us these teachings are not outdated. James's trauma was modern. His coping mechanisms were modern. But the path to healing was ancient. Worked for monks 2,000 years ago. Worked for a firefighter today. The fourth characteristic, noble direction, shows us progress that harms no one. James's old coping mechanism, drinking, harmed himself and his family. His new path, meditation, harmed no one. It elevated him. Made him more present for his wife. More stable at work. More at peace within himself. The fifth characteristic, for the wise to realize by themselves, reminds us this is an inside job. No one could heal James's trauma for him. His wife couldn't. His captain couldn't. His therapist couldn't. They could support him. Guide him. Point the way. But the actual healing, the actual realization, had to happen inside his own mind. This is why the Buddha's teaching is often called a raft. You build a raft to cross a river. Once you reach the other shore, you don't carry the raft on your back. You leave it behind. The teachings are like that. They are tools. Means to an end. Not ends in themselves. You use them to cross from suffering to peace. From confusion to clarity. From bondage to freedom. But you have to cross yourself. No one can carry you. The raft is there. The far shore is there. But you have to paddle. I think of all the people I have known over the years. Richard the architect. Patricia the nurse. Thomas the physicist. Grace the teacher. Frank the technologist. Helen the lawyer. Derek the entrepreneur. Ivy the trainer. James the firefighter. Different lives. Different struggles. Different paths. But the same fundamental discovery. Peace is possible. Freedom is possible. Not somewhere else. Not someday. Here. Now. In the middle of ordinary life. They didn't become enlightened beings living in caves. They became ordinary people living ordinary lives with extraordinary freedom inside. Still had problems. Still had challenges. Still had difficult days. But something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer slaves to their own minds. They had discovered the sky behind the clouds. This is the promise of the Dharma. Not perfection. Not escape from life. But freedom within life. The ability to meet whatever comes with an open heart and a steady mind. To suffer less. To love more. To be truly alive in each moment. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a woman named Catherine. Catherine was a mother of 3 young children. Her days were a blur of school runs, meal preparations, homework help, and endless laundry. She loved her children more than anything. But she was exhausted. Overwhelmed. Losing herself in the demands of motherhood. Catherine had been a painter before children. Had studied art in college. Had dreamed of gallery shows and critical acclaim. But those dreams got pushed aside. There was no time for painting. No space for creativity. No energy for anything beyond survival. One day, Catherine was folding laundry. A mountain of it. Small socks. Tiny shirts. Stained pajamas. She felt the familiar resentment rising. This is all I am now, she thought. A laundry folder. A chauffeur. A short-order cook. Then something stopped her. A memory. Her college art professor had once said something about noticing the ordinary. About finding beauty in everyday things. About how a great artist could paint a pile of laundry and make it profound. Catherine looked at the laundry differently. Really looked. The colors. The textures. The way the light fell across the folded piles. She reached for her phone and took a photo. Just a snapshot. But something about it pleased her. She kept folding, but now she was noticing. The weight of warm towels. The softness of a child's shirt. The simple satisfaction of creating order from chaos. Over the following weeks, Catherine started taking more photos. Not for anyone else. Just for herself. Sunlight on the kitchen floor. Her daughter's muddy boots by the door. Steam rising from a cup of tea. She wasn't painting, but she was seeing. Really seeing. The ordinary moments of her life became a kind of meditation. Months later, Catherine dug out her old paints. Set up a small corner in the basement. Started painting again. Not grand subjects. Just the ordinary moments she had been photographing. A pile of laundry. A sink full of dishes. Children's hands at the dinner table. Something had shifted. She wasn't painting despite her life. She was painting her life. The ordinary had become sacred. The mundane had become art. And Catherine had found herself again. Not the self she had been before children. A new self. Richer. Deeper. More alive to the beauty hidden in plain sight. This brings us back to something essential. The path is not about escaping ordinary life. It is about fully inhabiting it. Seeing it clearly. Appreciating it deeply. The Buddha didn't teach people to leave the world. He taught them to be fully awake in it. Now let's talk about how these 5 characteristics become a filter. A way to test any teaching, any practice, any path. When you encounter something new, hold it up to these 5 questions. First, is it practical in the present? Does it help me find peace now, or does it promise peace later? Catherine's shift in perception happened in the middle of folding laundry. Not in a meditation hall. Not on a retreat. Right there in the ordinary moment. That is practicality. Second, can I come and see it for myself? Can I verify it through direct experience? Catherine didn't have to believe that laundry could be beautiful. She looked. She saw. She experienced it. The proof was in her own perception. Third, is it timeless? Does it address fundamental laws of mind that are true in any era? The practice of noticing the ordinary, of being present, of finding beauty in the mundane, is not a modern invention. It is as old as human consciousness. It worked for Catherine in her suburban home. It worked for monks in ancient forests. It will work for people 1,000 years from now. Fourth, does it lead in a noble direction? Does it cultivate happiness that is harmless and sustainable? Catherine's shift harmed no one. It didn't require anything from anyone. It didn't deplete resources or exploit others. It simply opened her eyes to what was already there. That is noble direction. Fifth, can it be realized by a mind that is open and willing? Catherine didn't need special training or advanced degrees. She just needed to pause. To look. To be willing to see things differently. That openness, that willingness, is the wisdom of the empty cup. These 5 questions are powerful tools. You can apply them to anything. A spiritual teaching you hear. A self-help book you read. A habit you have. A thought pattern that troubles you. Hold it up to the light of these 5 characteristics and see what you discover. Try it with something simple. Take the habit of complaining. Apply the 5 questions. Is complaining practical in the present? No. It reinforces dissatisfaction right now. Can you see its effects for yourself? Yes. Notice how you feel after complaining. Heavy. Contracted. Stuck. Is it timeless? People have complained forever. Does it lead in a noble direction? No. It spreads negativity. Harms your mood and the mood of others. Can a wise mind see through it? Yes. When you are open, you can observe the urge to complain and choose something else. The teaching becomes a living reality. Not abstract philosophy. Not ancient history. A practical tool for navigating your actual life. This is the gift of the Buddha's map. It empowers you. Gives you discernment. You are no longer just following someone else's rules. You are investigating reality. Making your own discoveries. Becoming your own authority. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a man named Leonard. Leonard was a retired postal worker. He had spent 35 years delivering mail, walking the same routes, seeing the same faces, doing the same thing day after day. When he retired, he thought he would be happy. Finally free. Finally able to do whatever he wanted. But Leonard was not happy. He was lost. Without the structure of work, without the daily routine, he didn't know who he was or what to do with himself. He sat at home watching television, gaining weight, feeling useless. His wife suggested hobbies. He tried golf. Hated it. Tried woodworking. No patience for it. Tried reading. Couldn't concentrate. Leonard's daughter suggested volunteering. There was a hospice center nearby that needed people to sit with patients who had no family. Leonard said absolutely not. Too depressing. Why would anyone do that? But his daughter persisted. Just try it once, she said. If you hate it, you never have to go back. Leonard went. Reluctantly. Sat with an elderly man who was barely conscious. Didn't know what to say. Just sat there in silence. For an hour. When he left, he felt strange. Not good, exactly. But not bad either. Something about the silence had been peaceful. He went back. Sat with different patients. Learned to be comfortable with silence. Learned to hold a hand. Learned that presence was enough. You didn't need to fix anything or say anything profound. Just being there mattered. After about 6 months, Leonard was sitting with a woman in her final days. She hadn't spoken in weeks. But on this day, she opened her eyes and looked at him. She said, "Thank you for being here." Then she closed her eyes and was gone. Leonard sat there for a long time. Crying. Not from sadness exactly. From something else. Gratitude. Connection. A feeling of having been part of something sacred. Leonard later said that moment changed everything. He understood something he had never understood before. That life is not about what you do. It's about how you show up. That being present for another person, truly present, is the most valuable thing you can offer. All those years delivering mail, he had walked past people every day but never really seen them. Now, at the end of his life, he was learning to see. This brings us to the heart of the fifth characteristic. The wise realize by themselves. Leonard didn't learn about presence from a book or a teacher. He learned it by sitting in silence with dying people. By being uncomfortable and staying anyway. By discovering for himself that being present matters. That was his realization. No one could give it to him. He had to live it. Think about the people in these stories. Richard discovered peace in the middle of his striving. Patricia found an island in the storm of her hospital. Thomas saw impermanence in his own mind. Grace learned kindness by practicing it. Frank realized technology couldn't fix an internal problem. Helen let go of resentment she had carried for years. Derek found purpose beyond profit. Ivy discovered the value of simply being. James learned he was the sky, not the clouds. Catherine found beauty in a pile of laundry. Leonard discovered presence in a hospice room. Different paths. Different struggles. Same fundamental discovery. Freedom is possible. Peace is possible. Not somewhere else. Not someday. Here. Now. In the middle of ordinary life. And each of them made this discovery for themselves. No one could do it for them. The Buddha could point. Teachers could guide. Books could describe. But the actual realization, the moment of seeing clearly, happened inside their own minds. That is the fifth characteristic in action. This is why the path requires courage. It requires you to stop looking outside for answers. To stop waiting for someone to save you. To stop believing that happiness will arrive with the next purchase, the next achievement, the next relationship. It asks you to turn around and look within. To investigate your own mind. To discover for yourself what is true. This can feel lonely at first. We are so used to outsourcing our well-being. To doctors and therapists and gurus and self-help books. All these can be helpful. All these can point the way. But at some point, you have to walk the path yourself. You have to sit with your own mind. Face your own demons. Discover your own freedom. The good news is you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to achieve enlightenment by next Tuesday. You just have to take the next step. One moment of presence. One breath observed. One choice to respond instead of react. Small steps. Taken consistently. Over time, they add up. Over time, they transform. I think of Leonard sitting in that hospice room. He didn't know he was learning presence. Didn't know he was discovering wisdom. He just showed up. Sat in silence. Held a hand. And over time, something changed inside him. The wisdom grew on its own, like a plant growing in good soil. He didn't make it happen. He just created the conditions. This is your practice. Creating the conditions. Showing up. Sitting in silence. Paying attention. Being present. The wisdom will grow on its own. You don't have to force it. You don't have to figure it out. You just have to show up and be willing to see. Let me tell you one last story. This one is about a man named Martin. Martin was a busy executive who came to a meditation retreat with no idea what to expect. On the last day, he shared something that stayed with me. He said, "I came here looking for something special. Some magical experience. Some profound insight. And instead, I learned to drink a cup of tea." He explained. For 40 years, he had been drinking tea while doing something else. Reading the newspaper. Making phone calls. Planning his day. He had never actually tasted tea. Never noticed the warmth of the cup in his hands. Never watched the steam rise. Never just sat with a cup of tea and did nothing else. On the retreat, they served tea each afternoon. No phones. No books. No conversation. Just tea. The first day, Martin was bored. Restless. Kept thinking about all the things he could be doing. By the third day, he started noticing. The color of the tea. The fragrance. The heat on his lips. The way it moved down his throat. By the fifth day, drinking tea was the most interesting part of his day. Martin said, "I spent my whole life searching for happiness in big things. Achievements. Acquisitions. Accomplishments. And all along, happiness was waiting for me in a cup of tea. I just wasn't there to drink it." This is the essence of everything we have explored together. The 5 characteristics are not abstract philosophy. They are a return to the simple. The ordinary. The present. Practical in the present means the peace you seek is available now. Not in some future achievement. Not in some distant heaven. Right here. In this breath. In this moment. To come and see means you don't have to believe anyone. You can taste the tea for yourself. Feel the warmth. Experience the peace. Know it directly. Timeless means this truth does not expire. It was true for monks 2,000 years ago. It is true for you today. It will be true for generations to come. Noble direction means this happiness harms no one. It doesn't require exploiting anything or anyone. It simply uncovers what was always there. For the wise to realize by themselves means no one can drink your tea for you. No one can be present for you. No one can hand you peace like a gift. You have to show up. You have to taste. You have to see for yourself. So here we are at the end of our time together. But the real journey is just beginning. The real practice starts now. When you step away from this voice and return to your life. When you fold laundry or drive to work or sit with someone you love. The question is not whether you remember these 5 characteristics. The question is whether you show up. Whether you taste your tea. Whether you feel your breath. Whether you are present for your one precious life. The Buddha's map is here. The path is here. The peace is here. Always here. Waiting for you to arrive. Thank you for spending this time at Monk's Temple. May your path be clear. May your heart be light. May you find the peace that is your own true nature. Until next time.